I'm Barbara Menino,
And I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
and we want to welcome you to today's episode of Soapbox Wisdom, where we talk about things that are on our minds as business women, and we suspect they're on your minds too. So before we get started, please remember to like, share, comment on anything from this episode, because I'm sure you have insights that other people would want to know. Today, whether you're scared of numbers or not, we are talking about them and how important numbers and math are to your business. If the truth be told, Christine is the numbers gal in this partnership. She has a background in bookkeeping, so she's not only adept at numbers, she likes numbers. I, as a creative, know they're important, struggle with them a bit, and it was a bit of a road to get them the right focus in my business. But Christine, you've often said you go down the rabbit hole with numbers. So tell us a little bit about that. The
Oh,
good,
yeah.
the
Well,
bad, and the ugly.
I'm just going to be perfectly honest. Yes, I like numbers. I get numbers. I know in a previous coaching group when they were talking about a formula and people were just totally mystified by how the whole thing worked. I'm like, what's the problem here? I get this stuff. I can go down the rabbit hole spending too much time working on different scenarios, different ways of looking at things, but I'm also guilty, yes, I'm guilty of not using my numbers as much as I should. So I'm just putting it out there, yes, I get numbers, I know what we need to be doing, and sometimes I am spending too much time in the area, but then also I'm not using it as much as I should. And that's what we're really talking about here today, I think, Barbara, is hopefully our audience is going to come away from this and realize that it's the beginning of a new year. Everybody's always waiting for, the beginning of the month, the beginning of the week, something. Is this the right time? Is this the right time to start looking at your numbers? And being consistent about it. So I thought today that we would talk about what are all the different areas of numbers that we're talking about? Because we're not just talking about revenue, but I don't know, maybe you want to start with revenue.
Well, revenue is very definitely important, and that is, however, part of the end game. You have to kind of reverse engineer, look backwards from that to figure out if there's a certain revenue that you need to produce the income that you want. What are you going to have to do to get there? And that means going backwards to your product and service offerings and what the various packages that you offer should bring in to achieve your revenue slash and also income goals.
Mhm. Right. And it's easy to just start out in business and say, "Oh, this is how much I'm going to charge. All right, let's go." And not take even your basic expenses into account. Because in figuring everything out, you have to look at what are your expenses. If you have a website, you've got an expense right there. There's no way around it. You're going to have some sort of website expense. Um, but you have to take both the income that you want to generate into account. You have to be looking at what is it costing you also. And really looking at, if you've been in business for some time, I recommend that you look at those expenses in depth to see how much you're benefiting from each one. Technology can eat up a lot of expenses, and oh, this tool sounds great. I'm going to start on this one. And oh, here's a tool I can use. But if you find that you're really not using it efficiently and much at all, it's like, maybe it's time to reduce that expense. Um, And this again, with it being the start of a new year, I think this is a great time. Look back on what you did the previous year. If you're looking at setting goals for this new year, you got to know where you came from before you can start looking at this new year. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too in depth on the revenue end because I think that's what generally people think about. Oh, you're talking all about revenue. But there's many places in your business where you can pull numbers from. Let's see, I have notes here so I don't forget any of the things that I was thinking about. I mean, like I said, your website, you can pull numbers from your website. You pull numbers from your email marketing, from your social media, when you're speaking, when you're networking. There's so many different areas that you can be pulling numbers from instead of just throwing spaghetti up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
And that is not just looking necessarily at the dollars, but you are looking at statistics, if you
Mhm,
will, the metrics
mhm,
of what worked and what didn't, what brought you more clients
mhm,
and what didn't. And people often forget about needing to track the metrics.
mhm,
They think, for example, if they're out networking and going to every event they can, that they're operating well in their business. But half of those events may not be producing real results for them.
mhm, mhm,
The other thing you said about revenue and people just looking about revenue, mea culpa, when I first started my business and I was looking at the numbers, one of the things I was really focused on, if not the primary and kind of only thing, was how much was I going to charge for the respective services that I offered. Well, that was very important. But I was looking at it from a value perspective. What was
mhm,
the value of how well I could perform a function? What was the value of how long I'd been providing content? And I wasn't looking at it in the larger container of what was the revenue I needed to bring in to produce the income that I wanted. And not only just the income that I wanted, but produce the money that could support the expenses that are inevitable with the business. You raised a good point. Technology, marketing, the shiny object of what comes into our inbox, and we sign up for this and that. There's a
mhm.
lot of money going out that sometimes we lose track of. I was having a conversation with my son yesterday, and he said he had spent several hours that morning looking not only at his business, where he very carefully tracked his money in and out, but his life. He said, I found a lot of wasted dollars that I was spending on stuff, subscriptions that I'd had, places where I'd taken free trials and neglected to cancel them.
Mm.
And I wasn't using the services. So, whether life or in business, tracking what's going out as well as what's coming in is essential, and making sure they are valid expenses that will move your business forward. All of that's important.
Right, and I just wanna tell our listeners a tidbit here also about the tracking. If you're just using your checkbook to tell you whether you have money or not, yeah, that's a big mistake. You need to use a spreadsheet, if nothing else, a spreadsheet, but bookkeeping software is the best because you can run so many different reports with it. But when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm good with my numbers. I know exactly what I have in my checking account," that is not what we're talking about here. You need a lot more information on the money end of things than a bottom line of a checkbook is gonna be telling you. So at
That's just
least
one
a
little
spreadsheet.
slice again, right?
Mhm.
Compared
Yeah.
to the rest.
Right, right. And I like how you said about your son and subscriptions, you take a trial and then you forget to get out of it before they start billing you for it. I have started to put notices on my calendar if I get into in
Good.
fact, I did start something last month that I put a notice on my calendar. like 2 weeks or a week and a half before the actual subscription is going to kick in. I put it on my calendar to note. It's like, hey, make a decision today on this date, whatever it was, to take a look at that if I want to continue it or not. Because yeah, it's so easy to forget about these things. But as soon as you get into something, give yourself a note on your calendar.
That's really,
Yeah.
really a good idea, because I find in talking to other people, and I've done this myself, you often forget about what you've signed up for. You don't even know you have it, and it kicks in, and you may not see it till you look at your credit card or debit card statement at some point later, and attach it to that subscription.
Yeah. And now on, in the same area as subscriptions, I mentioned some of these other areas of looking at numbers. Your website, how many domains do you own? I know some people that have pages. It's like they think of something like, "Oh, I have to buy that domain." I just let one go. It came up for renewal after a year, and I said, I thought it was a good idea at the time, but I'm gonna let it go." So that is something both on my financial side, a number to be aware of there, but it's also on the side of websites and that area of what do I have? What are all the different domains I have? What are the sites that I have? But those are things to look at in your business also. What are those numbers like? But when it comes to your website, the numbers that you really need to look at is how many people are visiting your site? Where are they coming from? Are they your demographic? And all of this can be done, yes, with more technology. Google Analytics is the big one to give you information about your website. Well, I guess, Barbara, though, that is, if you are hoping that people find you through Google searches or something like that, I know some people build a website and they feel that it's just a place to send people after they meet them. I don't know. What do you find with your site and with clients that you've had? Do you find people are looking to, be found organically with their website?
So I often hear people say, especially if they're starting out, um, that they have to have a website because everybody has a website. And while there is truth to that statement,
Mhm.
there's more than meets the eye. The point that you just brought up about tracking how many people visit, the number of times they visit, the number of clicks, how long they stay on a page. Now, I have to say that that sounds like a deep dive into technology. And you may not feel that you're equipped to track all those results, which is another point. Deciding what's important. Are there gap areas for you that you really can't get on top of because that's not your expertise? And even if you took it on, it would take you so much time that it's counterproductive. So then, again, the numbers, you have to look at what you need to track from your website, because that analytics is important. And is it worth outsourcing that service to someone who could do that, let's say monthly for you, maybe quarterly in a year? But is that worth the expense of farming that task out to save you time, but to teach you more? Because by doing that, you have a better handle on what you have to focus on. And focusing on the right thing is the only way you're going to move your business forward.
Right now, our listeners might be thinking, "Oh, the heck with it. I'm not going to worry about the numbers for my website." But I put this out there. Are you more prone to spend time and money on social media that is a hit and miss factor? or on your website that if you're the solution to somebody's problem and where are they looking for that solution? They're going to search engines and they're going to put in a query. And if you're the solution to the problem, your website's going to come up, not, you know. So I see, people spend more time with the social media platforms and learning what they should be doing. And if you're going to look at numbers, they're looking at social media numbers. But I'm just wondering, would your time be better spent working on the website? Now that's a
Well,
whole lot that could probably be a whole other conversation between the 2 things and everything, but I'm just saying when we're talking numbers today, because again, with social media, you should be tracking your numbers with social media. And I'm just, putting that out there of thinking about things in a little bit different light.
yeah, but that again shows is a clear example of what should you focus on. In a perfect world,
Mhm.
your social should align with your website, and they actually should be working together to produce results that show people are paying attention to you, that they're starting to follow you, that they're getting to know, like, and trust you, and ultimately they use your services. But once again, it's a game of what are priorities? What am I seeing is working better? What's more bang for my money? If I pay a web person, someone to support my website, if I can't do it myself, am I going to get a better bang for my buck than if I, perhaps not even strategically, post on the social platforms? Which is going to pay me more dividends? Which reminds me of something else, and we've often talked about this. Why are you or any of us in business in the first place? Again, in a perfect world, we're in business because we're doing something we love, we're doing something we want to share with others, we're doing something that can help others. But how many times have you spoken to someone who says, "Well, I'm starting this business because I want to help people," or "I'm starting this business because I love to write," or "I'm starting this business because this is my passion." Those are all good points. But unless you couple those with the tangibleness, again, of your numbers, whether you're tracking your metrics and your data, whether you're analyzing what you need for revenue, for price of each service, for cash flow, those two aren't separate. That's a holistic view. And you have to think of all that in order to really successfully operate and grow a business.
Oh, absolutely. And again, just because you want to do something, you just have this passion just to help people. And well, the money, yes, I need money, but not a lot. You still need to be tracking all these numbers to make it successful because all too often people get caught up in that, oh, they're spending a lot more money than is coming in. And ooh, that just ate up retirement. Uh-oh, now what? You know? So, yes, you do. No matter whatever reason you are in business, looking at all your numbers is critical. And everybody can start out with managing their numbers themselves. It's possible. It's just as you mentioned earlier, I think Barbara, going how deep do you want to go? To make that work, but having a basic knowledge, another area I wanted to make mention here too is, and people don't think of this, I think, is when they're speaking. Even if it's presenting to your local networking group, it's what are the numbers? How many people are there? Is it your demographic? What outcome did you expect? Did you get the calls booked that you wanted to, or, email addresses on your list. There's numbers there also that you can track to see what's working and what's not working. And that's really, with all of these numbers, you're looking at what is working and what's not working, what's working well, and what's, maybe I can let that one go. As we were talking earlier about the networking, oh my goodness, yeah, that's one. I see people running all over the place because they believe, well, that's just what I have to do. I have to keep showing up every day at all these networking events. But if you've been doing it for quite a while, you should probably have a good idea of which ones are producing some results and which haven't. But then again, it's not so much the event. You have to also look at how you handled yourself. There's so many different aspects to making anything work. That's the thing. It's
And it's when you say how you handled yourself. So, what was the thing that you maybe
yeah.
talked about one time that attracted more people than another topic? And
Mhm.
so, how can you repurpose that topic that drew people in so that when you present it, it's a little different, but it's the
Mhm.
same thing that has that draw? And here's a number that we haven't even discussed: the number surrounding time. Time tracking. How often do you hear people say, there are not enough hours in the day? I've been known to say that myself. But if you get used to saying to yourself, well, in my case, so I'm going to write this blog and I'm committed to it only taking 3 hours, and you make sure you stick to that,
Mhm.
that's numbers too. And that's
Mhm.
important because that helps you decide how you should met out your day. When you knock time tracking, when you get a handle on that, that increases your efficiency and your productivity in work. So, like numbers or not, they are inescapable, absolutely inescapable from to other aspects and data that you have to collect for your business.
Yeah. So I like you could say about, productivity, profitability. If you want to have the doors stay open, be looking at your numbers. And spreadsheets, just a simple spreadsheet is a great place to start. Uh, and with this being a new year, I'm going to say it again. Look back at last year. Look at some of the information from last year, what you did last year with your activities, and where do you want to go this year? But don't be afraid of your numbers. Don't be afraid of data. It can only help you in the long run.
I have to say that admonition is a good one. And as a person who whose numbers are not her favorite thing, I have discovered the more involved I've gotten with my numbers, the more I want to pound my chest a bit because I start feeling really good that I can tangentize my business and that I'm getting on top of not only the numbers, but what the analysis of those numbers represents. So there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or a light, I guess, more appropriately, at the end of the tunnel, if you're not a number lover. There's definitely, and there's so much to be gained that's absolutely necessary to grow a business.
Yeah. So embrace numbers, keep it simple, get that spreadsheet going right now.
I like keep it simple.
Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and christinerothdeutsch.com.